Andy, it's quite early on the Pacific Coast. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This is the part I hate about traveling. Like traveling 1 hour time difference is one thing.
Yeah.
Traveling 3 hours, I tried to stay on East Coast time because I'm only here for 5 days, or into 6 days. But the hard part is then the first 3 days you're good. Fourth day you're kind of on the edge. The fifth day you're completely on, whether you're fighting it or not. And now it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm here talking with you on a podcast, Andy.
Yeah, that's it, it's not fun. I don't envy you. I've been there. The thing that messes me up when I do these things is I try and keep my brain and like my functions on East Coast time, but then I invariably get pulled into West Coast time because stuff's happening locally, and my brain doesn't have the mental agility to handle like both of those. Like I can't keep track of what's happening when, and it completely discombobulates my mind. So I don't envy you, Dave. Going to the West Coast is never a fun, logistical experience.
Yeah, and a lot of times I used to think that it was like if you're a sports fan, being on the West Coast is probably the best. Are we good? Y- Yeah, so like on the West Coast is probably the best for the sports fan because 3 hour time difference. But the problem is because and then like that 7 o'clock game is starting as you're wrapping up the workday. You can watch the end of that game, and then you can watch the beginning of another game. Maybe finish that stuff too. I mean, it was always great for football because
Yeah,
football would start at 10 o'clock,
yeah.
and then you would be like you could watch all the Sunday night football game. Just the worker bee problem is then most times if you're working with people on the East Coast, you have to be up at their time to be on meetings at 6 o'clock in the morning. True, you get to work a little bit or wrap up work a little early, but it doesn't always work out like that either. So, anyways, just a fun thing, Andy. Andy, on Monday we talked. Was it Monday we talked about shrinkflation or last week? I can't remember when we talked.
I'll just say yes, one of those, Friday or Monday.
Yeah, we talked about shrinkflation, and I'm here to tell you, like the government hurt us, and the propaganda has already started.
Right, are they
Cookie
countering our
Monster.
message?
Yeah, yeah. The Cookie Monster is now in the government's bag, I think, Andy. This episode of Sesame Street last week where he was complaining about shrinkflation and the size of the cookies are no longer the same size, Andy. I tell you, this is the greatest of all conspiracies, and it just shows you the power of the second layer, the deep state, Andy, the satanic cults, the pedophiles, all those, the Pizzagate. It's probably connected to Pizzagate too. So just
Probably, but it does show the power of this podcast. I mean, we were not only talking about shrinkflation, we were also recently talking about Sesame Street and Bert and Ernie. And so
that
I think Big Brother, heard us and they weaved it all together and came out with a message, through Sesame Street via Pizzagate, obviously, to talk about this. But I think, I think on one hand, it's kind of funny, right? Here's Cookie Monster, weighing in on political issues, talking about it, like it's kind of funny, right? Me want cookie, blah, blah, like that's. On the other hand, it's kind of like this is why people, some political beliefs get pissed off with Sesame Street and TV.
right.
I mean, because they're pitching an idea. It's a politically motivated idea to kids and their parents
Yep.
on public broadcasting. It's kind of like, hey, maybe you don't need to do that really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe that isn't the right forum to raise that issue. And that does piss people off, and it does sort of feed the idea that PBS and other certain media are just government blowhards, right? And
Yeah.
or not even government really, but democratic blowhards, right? And so I don't know that's the right move, and I think it does not look particularly good for PBS to be honest, because it's not an issue that Cookie Monster really needs to weigh in on. I think it was on social media, right? It wasn't like it was on Sesame Street, but still, I think it kind of crosses into an area that's probably best for Cookie Monster to stay out of, even though kind of harmless, kind of cute. Cookie Monsters, eat your cookies. Put together words for us. Keep it simple.
Yeah. No, I think that it's a valid point because this is really like Sesame Street. You're playing to preschoolers or like young elementary school kids. Um, like they don't care about shrinkflation. They just want to hear Cookie Monster yuck it up, and they just want to hear Elmo and all that other stuff. They don't. and the hard part is imagine if you're the parent watching, doing stuff in the background, all of a sudden you hear them start talking about shrinkflation.
Yeah.
And on some fun, on some end it can be fun, it could be like a little funny, but it is true. I mean, that's where people do get upset with the media about why is this even necessary? And then what is the ulterior motives behind there? What else are they saying or doing? If they're willing to go shrinkflation with the Cookie Monster, what else are they also doing? And that does feed these narratives that again, just for what purpose? So
Yeah.
anywho, Andy. So all right, Andy, I don't particularly care to want to talk about this, but we probably have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Super Tuesday was last night. It was
Does
a
that
super
happen?
Yeah, it was, in case you didn't notice. It was a super drubbing, as I think we all expected. Um, Biden was comfortably in the 90 percentile for almost everything on the Democratic side. And then Trump, I think he's within 100 delegates now of winning the Republican nomination. Probably likely get it in the next couple weeks. Nikki Haley did win the state of Vermont, so add Vermont to the Washington D.C. area. But it went as expected, I guess I would say. Trump was convinced, strongly in the 60 percentile to Haley's like 30 percentile. And I think it's just all, I mean, unless Nikki's just going to hope for something to happen between now and the convention, it's fait accompli, I guess, is the right thing. Any thoughts on Super Tuesday?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I noted yesterday, like it's probably the most boring Super Tuesday, of my lifetime. So just there's nothing like really there was no competition to look for. There was, it's kind of these two parties have resigned themselves to these two old men. So nothing exciting. Some interesting things. When there's some sort of exit polling observations. Biden got maybe too many people voting for like anybody else, versus him, which isn't a good indicator. That's sort of expressing frustration, I think, more than necessarily opposition, right? They'll probably end up voting for Biden. But Nikki Haley did well with certain parts of the population. I think people are still saying like demographics that Trump is not winning, right? Women, college educated voters, like there's a lot of voters that are supporting Mr. Trump, but there's a lot of people that are probably not going to support him in the general election. And that's a question of like, how does he win those voters over? Can he paint Joe Biden as such a threat and a problem and a menace to America that you have to vote for Donald Trump? I don't think he can do that. And I think those concerns of him not being able to win, a more broad part of the electorate are real. And I'll say it today, Dave, on March 6th, and I'll say it again, I'm sure. I don't think Donald Trump can win the general election unless something really insane happens, right? Unless, I mean, like, hey, State of the Union is tomorrow night. If Joe Biden gets out there and freezes up for an hour, if he has some insane old man moment, or there's some catastrophe, maybe people give Trump another look, but I don't see how that happens. So I think we're just moving forward in the direction we've been expecting to move forward. And hey, congratulations to Nikki Haley winning the great state of Vermont. And I think the question now is what next for Nikki Haley? What next for No Labels? What next for RFK? What next for Libertarian Party? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think this is like I just well I will respectfully disagree just on the fact that I just don't think like this. Biden also has to make this promise that he, like, Trump is such an extra what it is such a
Existential.
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's too early in the morning, Andy. He's such a threat that we have to save America. I just don't know if that plays anymore, plays again. And because of the age, I just don't think Biden has inspired anybody to come out to vote for him. And I think he needs the vote to come out for him. And um, so it will be interesting to see. Yeah, I don't see how Trump loses. That's my challenge. Now I know I'll flip flop on this 50 more times based on any new reporting that comes out or polling that comes out, but I just don't see. I think both of the sides have equally losing arguments, and they both suck.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, I mean,
I think an important point. I think it is going to make a difference who comes out to vote. Joe Biden got a lot of support from African Americans last time around. That's pretty critical for his success, right? And so, can he retain that? And I mean, like, Virginia, I could have gone and voted in the primary yesterday. I didn't vote because I didn't care. I didn't care to cast a ballot for either Trump or Haley. It wasn't in my interest. I'll vote in the general election for sure, but I don't know if all Americans will, like, I don't know if they're going to be fired up to get out
That's
there.
what I mean. I just don't think the vote's going to come out.
Yeah, and that affects everything. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, so if they can't get support, I think one big difference maker, Biden's got a lot of money and he's going to use that money. And they're going to have a lot of opportunities to continue to pummel America with Donald Trump's a criminal, right? He's going to be going through a number of court hearings in the coming few months. And once that commercial, machine gets going, we're going to see a lot of negative ads. We're going to see January 6th. We're going to hear Trump's words, right? It's going to be blasted in front of America. He's got a lot more money than Donald Trump does right now. That I don't think will change significantly, right? I don't think there's going to be an influx of money to Donald Trump that isn't matched by the Democratic Party, and that's a difference maker too, I think. And so we're going to hear a lot of negative coverage of both of them. But I think Biden's got more opportunity, to both garner his party support generally. Democrats will come vote for Biden. I don't know that Republicans will come vote for Trump necessarily. We'll see how it plays out. It'll be interesting. If I was making a bet today, I say Joe Biden wins re-election. I don't think Donald Trump can win election, but I think there's a lot of variables between now and November.
Yeah, I do think the variables will play out. Andy, though, you do mention, I mean, with, of course, now this being what it is, Trump versus Biden. And before there were people considering saying Nikki should run as a third party. She's getting a lot of things. Now you're hearing the opposite again. All the people who God save the Republican Party and save it from Trump are saying you can't. You can't, Nikki. You can't. I want a third party, but not now. Not,
Yeah, of
we,
course,
we need
of
to
course.
save against Trump. A vote for Nikki is a vote for against by vote.
Biden.
Yeah, and so I think that's just where you're going to hear this time and time again. Andy, the one thing I will say is, the effect of, you talked about ads and such, and I think what you're going to start seeing now more, and we've already started seeing some of it, is AI impacts on um, political discourse, political um, fake ads, I guess. You're going to start seeing like the deep fakes come out. We already heard about Joe Biden's the robocalls, right? Um, we already heard about a member from the Dean Phillips campaign using an AI generated product to speak out against Biden or to convince people to vote against Biden or whatnot. I can't remember all the details, but then now you're seeing, Trump with pictures of him and minority groups to show that he loves all minority groups. Trump cares about everybody, and so they're going to start putting pictures of that. It's the same type of pictures of where you have Trump with his sleeves off with two AR-15s in his hands and his muscles bulging, those type of things. But Andy, I think AI is going to have a huge effect on this election. What are your things there? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, right? I mean, I do think we're going to see more and more, false propaganda, right? Things that aren't real, and this is a good early, indication of that, right? I mean, you're seeing doctored images, not even doctored, AI generated images
Yeah.
of Trump with voters that aren't real pictures, didn't happen, manipulating people's perceptions. That's a real challenge, right? It's a challenge when it comes from supporters of the two main candidates. That's an issue. It becomes even more concerning when it starts coming from foreign actors, right, who want to sort of influence things. And I think for America, it really has to make us sort of just pause and say, look, I'm gonna try and digest things thoughtfully. I'm gonna try and make sure that what I'm hearing and seeing is legit, and it puts more of a burden on the voter, which is, I mean, candidly, most people don't care enough to really think through all that, right? So it does affect us when we see images, just like commercials. Everybody says, I don't get influenced by commercials, but we do. Same thing with false propaganda. It's like, we don't think we get influenced by the things that we see and hear, but we do. And so it is a concern that there's manipulated information, misinformation, disinformation out there. And then it starts, raising flags like what's truth, what's false, who decides, and it just causes a lot of voter confusion. And that's an unfortunate reality of the times that we're in, and it will only get worse.
Yeah, I mean, the voter confusion is exactly what they're, I think, looking for here, and it's going to be you. Look, it's hard to imagine yeah, out being at this conference, man. AI is a big topic, but it is one of those things. Like we're just in the early stages of AI. Like this is like if you're looking at it in terms of a baseball game, it's the first inning of a baseball game or a football game. Or you could say it's a the opening drive or something
Yeah,
because we still have a. I mean, this is just going to get for all the benefits that AI brings, I mean, equally so, the threat actors are doing it. I will tell you, I used AI for the first time this week, a chat GPT on something, and I was impressed. Now, there's still some bugs in it. There's still some things that I mean, you have to do a little bit of fact checking sometimes and just make sure you're doing the right stuff. But I mean, it can get you started on a lot of really good stuff and help those wheels go along. But it's really good already. I mean, the images are like for the normal user, it's going to be hard to do that. So I will be interested to see if there's like a rise in new media type of companies that dissect and feed information about what is real and what is fake, and if there's ways that they can even do that. Maybe they can use AI to solve AI. I mean, but it is a threat. It is a concern, and it will have an impact on this election for sure. So,
yeah, yeah. I don't disagree, but I think it's time to move on from the election, Dave. What do you think?
yeah, I think so. Do you have a fancy like swish or anything, Andy? Where's your
You know
swish?
what? I didn't set up my audio this morning. I
Okay.
wasn't prepared to. Sorry, my coffee took longer to make than usual. I wasn't ready.
Okay, well, you failed this one, Andy. So, okay, Andy, yesterday, were you impacted by the Facebook or Instagram outage?
I was impacted in that it occurred
Yeah,
and Threads was down temporarily. I thought it was funny to see the explosion. I mean, I was getting, I have a lot of alerts and notifications. And so I was looking at my watch and like, there's of course about a half hour where I was getting notifications every couple of minutes that, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Threads is down. I was like, just like this happens. It's almost never hostile. Somebody typically screwed up. It used to happen to Twitter on a not infrequent basis, right? And so, these things do occur, but it's funny to see the excitement and sort of chaos. I mean, I got notified a million different ways that Meta was having issues. It's like, hey, just do something else for a minit, like
I know.
you'll be all right. Like
I
we're
know.
definitely not in a crisis moment here. Give me a second to figure it out. So I did notice it. I didn't really care, but it was funny to see the excitement around it as it blows up instantly. And I love the fact that people go to other environments to vocalize their frustration
Yeah.
that their favorite social media application is down. How about you, Dave? Were you lost without your Facebook pages yesterday?
Yeah, I didn't even know. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't even know. Usually if something like one of the apps don't open right away, I try to close it out, start it up again and do but no, I haven't I just move on when it does. But I to your point about going to other platforms, it's funny. Elon Musk even was like, "Hey, if you're reading this message, our servers are working," type of thing. It's always fun to poke the bears and to do stuff. I do find it also comical, as you noted, about how they will switch and complain or something, and or the jokes that come out, like what
Yeah.
the dictionary folks will come out make some pokes or whatever. It's so good times, but I guess the reliance on some of that social media, some people just have to. We talked about the risk and dangers of social media over time, but always a challenging situation. So, all right, well, that's a fun little add-in topic there. But what else, Andy? What else do you got on your plate of news or articles of attention? I guess I'll
What's going
say.
on? Well, there's some interesting things. Waze, Dave. Are you a Waze user?
I was a Waze user at one time, and then it was like it sucked up all my battery. I mean, this is probably 10 years ago, and I was like, okay, I can't use that anymore. I've used it occasionally, but I'm more of a Google Maps person, Andy.
Yeah, so I mean, they all work, right? I mean, they're all functional. Google Maps, Apple, whatever you want to use, and I use certain ones for certain purposes, like walking. I like Apple if I'm going somewhere new on the trail, riding my bike. Sometimes I like to use Apple or Google, but I really like Waze when I'm driving. And look for all the different things Waze does. At the end of the day, we're all looking for cops, right?
Yeah,
That's what it
yeah,
comes
that's
down
right.
to, right? For all the functionality of Waze, at the end of the day, tell me where the cops are, and so we can all save each other from getting pulled over. That's what it's about. But yeah, they're adding some updated features. I think it's great to see the capabilities there. It allows crowdsourced awareness of what's happening on the roads. I think it's useful. I think it's also a little bit distracting at times. They've made it easier, and they're making some neat updates. I think in the weeks ahead, they're adding speed bump notifications. Hey, sharp turn ahead, traffic circle. Traffic circles still, by the way, kick Americans' asses, right? Americans still don't know how to handle
I
the
love
traffic
them.
circle. I love them. I think they're great, but I hate it when Joe is in front of me
I
and
know.
comes to a full stop, and it's like, hey, dickhead, it's a traffic circle. Like, keep moving. It drives me nuts. Or people that feel like it's not a stop sign, therefore it's a race, and so who's going to get through there first? And you almost take me out because you hit the gas so hard trying to get you. So we still haven't wrapped our minds around how these things work safely, but Ways making some cool updates. I think that's cool. And Dave, I think something that we haven't really talked about, and maybe is a longer discussion, but country music.
Oh
So
yeah.
Beyonce, right, chart topping mega superstar, not known as a country star. She is now the first woman, black woman or interracial woman, to be on top of I think it's like the Country Hot 100 or something like that. So that's kind of cool in and of itself, and I like seeing artists cross over and do mashups and different things. It's kind of cool to see Beyonce doing a country song, but I personally, like, I've got a country music story, but I'm not a country music fan. It's super popular where I am. I mean,
Yeah.
country has grown in popularity over the years. It's a mainstream genre, right? It's a very successful industry. What about you? Are you a country music fan?
I used to be a huge country music fan. I mean, even through college, I was pretty good. But then I just stopped listening. It wasn't because I didn't like the music. I just lost interest, I think, in it. I did start moving a little bit more. Um, I always liked the rock and alternative music. And then I think it just took a little bit more. Just started liking more of that, and I haven't gone back to country. I used to be a huge Garth Brooks, George Strait fan.
Yeah,
Loved a lot of the groups from late 80s, early 90s, and in fact, I have some a separate playlist just of those old school songs. I just haven't gotten back into it. I know there's like hugely popular in San Diego. Chris Stapleton was here right before this conference started off, and it was like what it was. I mean, it wasn't quite Taylor Swift level, but it was pretty like so like the stadium was full,
yeah.
and a lot of people went to that concert. Obviously um there's a lot of really popular acts out there, and Garth Brooks is still around, but I haven't listened to Garth Brooks, probably like a new Garth Brooks song, since when he tried to do that double personality. I can't
Yeah,
remember
that's right.
what what his name. I
Long
can't
time
remember
ago. That's right.
the asinine name, and he would go in and appear as Chris Gaines, I think was what it was, or something weird like that. So I don't know. I can appreciate where country music has come. I just haven't gone back into it.
Yeah, I mean, it is like I said. I mean, it's at an all-time high. I mean, there's an article about it, I
Yeah.
think, this week talking. I mean, it's never been more popular than it is today, and I think it's fun to see people like don the country persona, right? You've got kids, on the East Coast and up north, and wearing cowboy hats and having a great time, and like just enjoying it. And hey, Chris Stapleton, I mean, just phenomenal voice, right? I mean, I like
Yeah.
his songs. He's sort of on that blend. I think we've seen more sort of country pop, right? Sort of country rock. It's sort of not as twangy as some of the old country. It's not exactly George Strait, right? And some of that's, I think, really enjoyable. But country music on the whole, despite raging popularity, like, I just can't generally get into it, right? And my experience with country, I did it as I had run-ins, as we've discussed before, with the law, driving a little bit too fast. And so I started using country music because I was like, hey, I enjoy, my T-tops off the Firebird, music playing really loud, driving really fast. And so I put country music on because I hated it. And so I couldn't get excited by it, and I would sit there and sort of suffer, and I would drive slower. The problem was then I started to like it, and like act like Dwight Yoakam, you know.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you're right, I started to like it, and then I started to drive fast again. I was like, this isn't helping me anymore. Fortunately for me, like I fell out of interest for the country music pretty quickly. So even there's some artists I still like and appreciate, and I can listen to it if it's on. And there are folks like Chris Stapleton, I think are just phenomenal, but I just don't like it, and so
Yeah.
I don't listen to it. It's not my thing. Hey, appreciate the talent. And it's fun to see stars go back and forth. Right, you got people like Sheryl Crow who've gone from pop rock to country and back, and now Beyonce, obviously, a much bigger star, hitting and she comes from Texas, so she's got some roots in sort of
Yeah.
that community, right? But it's just interesting to see. I'll stick with rock and metal for the most part, and of course, embarrassingly, good female pop music. But it's fun to see. Music's awesome, whatever genre, whatever people like. It's fun to hear them enjoy it, and not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is interesting to see that crossover sometimes and how those things occur. I mean, obviously Taylor Swift started off as a country music star
Yeah,
and then she transitioned to pop. You mentioned Sheryl Crow, Darius Rucker, Hootie and the
yeah.
Blowfish, was wildly popular with Hootie, and then he moved to country. I think he's back with Hootie and the Blowfish now, or something. I think something's going on. Again, I think I just don't follow music as closely anymore. I don't listen to music on the channels. I don't really. I mostly listen to podcasts. So it's well, even when I work out, it's listening to podcasts. So, anywho, okay, well, that's interesting parts there, Andy. Anything more on the country music transition of beyond? Do you think this is a long term or this is just one song?
I don't know if it's long term. I don't know if it's one side. I don't think she'll keep it up like for a long time. I think she's having fun with it. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's part of her new. I think she got a new album coming out. I don't know if it's going to be featuring some additional country music, but I think it's fun. I think it's fun when somebody that people know and has millions of adoring fans introduces something new to their audience, right? Like, hey, maybe check this out. Maybe you've never heard country before. Let me give you a sampling of country, and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of cool, right? Just like we were growing up, we were talking about mashups, like when Public Enemy teamed up with Anthrax, back in I think 1991, I was like, what the hell is this? This is awesome. And I got turned on to Public Enemy, a very
Yeah.
popular rap band. I think that's cool. I think it's cool for stars to use their influence to introduce their listeners, followers, whatever it is, to something that maybe they otherwise wouldn't be introduced to. I think that's cool. I think learning and being open to new styles, music, ideas when it comes to politics, I think these are healthy things and fun things. And so you should keep an open mind, whether it's to country music or political beliefs or even sports teams. Sometimes maybe it's time to turn the page on the Cowboys, Dave. Whatever it is, I think it's good to keep an open mind.
Yeah, and with keeping an open mind, Andy, I think that'll probably be wrapping up our podcast for this Wednesday. It's quite an array of topics we covered today, Andy. I'm not sure any of it was meaningful, but at least it was entertaining. So, all right, Andy, I am off back to the East Coast tomorrow, but we'll be back on this podcast Friday morning. I'll probably be fully embraced on Pacific time and struggling to be on East Coast time at that point. So.
I will enjoy laughing at you Friday morning. Safe travels, safe returns. We thank you, Dave, for serving our podcast listener and community from the West Coast.
Yeah, very good. So, you laugh at me anyways, Andy. So, but all right, Andy, with that, I will catch up with you next time.